What's up, it's Jewel. I am here to talk about something that is very dear to me. I'm doing the video since I was the one who pretty much dealt with most of these incidences, people, the whole thing. So as you can see, there's a different background. Well, that's because I'm in a different area. The nature of this topic I did not want to talk about in my bedroom. So without further ado, let's get into the video.
I was down with an illusion, like a sparrow with broken wings, but now I shine with your reflection on me.
So I pretty much ran our spiritual advisory business up until the very end when Juliana came back to the front. She was very excited to be at the front dealing with pretty much her own creation. I was just running it for her and the face of it, but at the same time, it was, it pretty much was hers. I don't know why I am feeling way different since hitting record once again, so we're just gonna... I've been waiting to kind of give a whole timeline on why I made the decision to stop giving readings 6 months ago when I stopped. Instead of, doing it in the heat of anger or, when I was still triggered by it, I wanted to wait so I was able to talk about it in a calm, like non-triggered mode, completely zen, instead of me babbling, because I feel like I'm gonna just keep stalling. Okay, so I first started giving readings around, I want to say like 12 years old, but then it didn't become like full on like all the time till like 16, and I was giving readings to my mom and her friends. That's kind of how it grew. I was also giving like mini readings to friends in school who knew their curiosities mixed with our mom's curiosity. Okay, wait, hold on. I say our mom because me and Juliana were kind of like, you could say, sisters, but we're not. Well, that's how I kind of like to look at it. So I look at Juliana's family as if they are my own. The other alters are kind of more distant with them, but as far as I'm concerned, I pretty much feel like I am also a part of the family. It's so hard to describe. Maybe I'll do a different video on that, but that's not what this is about. So anyway, I was giving readings to, technically, me and Juliana were in and out a lot before I was at the front for the most part. And then once she came back to the front, it was like, it wasn't new to her to be dealing with clients because she technically was in and out with me when we first were doing so with friends and family. But it was like, since I was running the actual business of it with clients and whoever else that was referred to us, that's kind of where it was like, okay, we learned a lot of things about people, and so it's really difficult to know like how exactly I want to start explaining this, but I'm just gonna go in order. I feel like I'm everywhere with this, but bear with me. So we started giving the readings by like 12 to 16. It was like on and off, and it was with friends and family, like I keep saying. That's what kind of helped us become confident in what we had and how it was gonna be able to help people. But it wasn't something that we ever thought that it was gonna become like a business or like something that grew into what it grew into. It was something that we thought was gonna have to be kept secret because honestly, back in the day, talking about things like that was like taboo. That's something you didn't talk about. That's something that, people would get called a witch for. That's something that people would get burned at the stake for. It's like, it's so stupid, but that's what would happen. So I always thought like, okay, we can never go public with this because it's not gonna be okay. But eventually we started meeting people who kept nudging us to do so, and that's what I'm about to get into now. Once again, I do not know why I'm having such a brain fart with like talking about all this. I literally had everything like clear in my head on how I wanted to describe it, and like now I'm in front of the camera and I'm totally stumped. Like I don't even know how I want to go about this or where I want to start with this or any of it. It's so weird to me. It's like, I don't know if it's because I'm in a different room. This is the first time I'm filming in this particular room or what. Like, I don't know what it is, but I don't think it's that. I think it's just like the sensitivity of it. It's just like, we'll get to why. Okay, so let me just breathe. Let me just take our own advice and just breathe. Okay, so this makes sense. Okay, the first person who I actually, okay. I totally forgot about this person who started us off with referring us to people other than family and friends. And so now having to think about her again is interesting to me. It's like, okay, I see what's happening here. And that's probably going to be the case with the rest of them. But anyway, we're just going to get through it. Okay, so this particular person, for this whole video, I'm not going to say any names. I'm just going to give like brief descriptions, because if you know, you know. If you don't, you don't. There's no need to like throw people out there. The first person who started referring us is a person who lives in Florida, Miami specifically. We were living in Miami at the time. So how we met briefly is that I was modeling for her. When she learned about who I was and my gifts, that's kind of when we became close. This is a recurring theme, by the way. A person would be like standoffish to me, not really knowing how to receive me, but then like, I guess distant, because like, number one, you're not gonna always gravitate to everyone, but number two, I guess you're not gonna always know, I don't know. But she was one of those who at first, you can tell that at first she was one of those who did not know. I'm just gonna talk over the noise because it's gonna keep being rude. It's just gonna keep happening. So let's just keep going. So anyway, I can tell she didn't know how to receive me. She once found out who I was or what I was about is when she wanted me around her all the time. And so we started having readings, just her and I, and then she started referring me to certain friends, and she would give them a disclaimer. Check out this disclaimer. She would go, oh, I'm gonna refer you to someone who's a reader. I'm getting chills as I'm saying this. This must mean something. She would go, oh, I'm gonna refer you to this person for a reading, but don't be alarmed by how they look. They don't look like how they are. It's gonna be my hair is standing up. It's gonna be a total different experience from when you see how they are to the services they can give you. At first I was just like, okay, I know that I have an alternative look. Okay, I get that. I get that it's gonna be, you know, off-putting for some people, but does that really have to be said? Does a spiritual reader have to have a certain like je ne sais quoi or like look about them? Like, does it have to be one set thing? That's what kind of would bother me, but I would just like shrug it off. Then it's like I would get to the reading and she would sit in on them, which I didn't mind. I guess it was like, I don't know, cool for her or whatever. So, or she wanted to give like mutual support to both of me and whichever friend she referred me to. So like that was cool. So she would sit in on the readings, and then it was like they were happy, you know. I don't want to assume blown away, but that's the first thought that came to mind. So I'm trying to stay really humble about this and not come off like, you know, I'm tooting my own horn or anything. But I can honestly say that they would be blown away, and I was humbled and I was grateful, and so was she, and it was, you know, it was awesome. So eventually, okay, first off, rewind. I never charged anyone around this time. It actually took years. It took over a decade for me to even start charging. We'll get to that in a second. I wasn't charging this at this time. It was like a barter system. Back in the day, it was like either you could give me food or some herb, and that's how we would do our exchange. I ended up leaving Miami and going back to, I'm not even gonna be able to remember the timeline of where I was moving to around these times. I'll just try to remember the people at least. So I ended up leaving Miami. I think I went back to Orlando before going back to New York, yes. So at this point, yes, okay, this is kind of cool. This is cool to see how this flowed. Okay, so I go back to Orlando, then I go back to New York. By the time I get to New York, I start entering like 2 different worlds at one time, by the way. This is so interesting to me, oh my gosh. Okay, so I entered the corporate world. I had a corporate job, but then I also entered the nightlife scene, and I was a nightlife performer, and I was having the duality of both of those. Oh my God, okay. So obviously in the corporate world, you know, I wasn't gonna tell them too much about my spiritual side or anything like that. I did talk about my like nightlife side because this particular office was very liberal. I must say this is one of the most fun offices I've ever worked at, hands down. And it was very cool. It was like one of those rare moments where the staff is like, we're all cool with each other, and we're so cool with each other that we're in group chatting all day while doing our work. Like, it was so fun, cracking jokes, like everything. So they were very much into bringing, I guess, my other side of me out, or like trying to show me like I could be myself while I was at work, which was cool. So I didn't really have to divide my day side and my night side. You know how a lot of people in corporate, okay, so wait a minute, let me rewind. A lot of people in the goth scene, that's the particular scene that I was performing in. It was like gothic, very like if the 80s was still around, but like the tail end of it, club kid slash vampiric scene slash very much almost Victorian, I would say. That's what's coming to mind. Let me just go with it, like a mixture of all of those. So anyway, it was like, usually when people are in the scene and they have a corporate job, they have to keep them very separate. But what I appreciated about this office is that they didn't really have me have to do that. I was able to dress how I wanted, look how I wanted. One time I walked in there for a whole week straight with a white wig on, like full on white hair, just to see, and they were loving it. You know, it was great. It was great. Pardon me. Pregnancy burps. So I was very much loving having both sides because it was like a balance. It was obviously great money coming in. Me and my ex-girlfriend were sharing an apartment. There was a lot of growth happening very fast from coming out of a really bad situation with a bunch of people that I was living with, which was horrible. So that was done, and it was like everything was looking up. But however, at the same time, unfortunately, my mental health was starting to peak, which I guess around that time, this was the age around like 22. So it's very interesting because DID usually peaks for people, or they start to recognize or realize that they have alters, or they have it, period, around the age of 22. And I don't know why. I'm still gonna do some like digging on that, but I will get back to you on that. But so this is when it was starting to peak, and it was difficult because it was like, okay, I have all these amazing things going on, but my mental health is still peaking, and it's like things from the past were coming up, flashbacks were happening, and it was creating some sort of a roller coaster. So obviously I wasn't giving readings because I'm very responsible to know, like, if I'm in a certain headspace or heart space, I'm not going to give a reading to anyone because that's not going to be my best capacity. And this is before I even started thinking about continuing on with doing it for other people. I was only doing it because I was referred from, you know, the first person who referred me, which was in another state. So now that I was, you know, back to where I was from, which is New York, I was like not even thinking about that, you know? I started telling people in the nightlife scene about my spiritual side, and unfortunately, their antennas and their like agenda and their motives started, like, the wheels were spinning. I didn't know this, but like the wheels were spinning, like, oh, this is what you can do, this is what you're about. Oh, okay, I know exactly how to use you now. And boy, did they. They used the out of me. Okay, I'm trying to curse less on here, you know, to make it maybe family friendly, but I don't know. it might slip out. But so I guess this is what you get for filming downstairs, but it's cool. I'll just wait. I thought this room was more soundproof than it is, but I guess it's not. Okay, so I lost my train of thought. Let me just collect it for a second. Okay, so I start thinking that because it is nightlife and because we are in such a scene that is to represent liberation and for you to just be whoever you are and let your freak flag fly and just be free, that I could trust these people into telling them another side of me that a lot of people don't know. But at the same time, you know, you never know who you're dealing with. You never know what motive a person has, and unfortunately that can bite you in the ass. So yeah, there goes the language. Whatever, I'm just gonna go with it. So a lot of things started to come up as red flags, but you know, I ignored them because I always try to see the good in people, even though people may think that I'm constantly nitpicking, constantly critical, constantly judging. I only got to this point because I trusted too easy. I literally was too trusting, too caring, too open, guard way down, no protection on self, just like, yeah, everyone's wonderful. Yeah, we would love to think that, but everyone is not. And so people have a very sneaky way of trying to stir you in a certain direction for their own benefit, and that's what pretty much was going on. Even though I did make, you know, seemingly wonderful connections, and I would never forget them, I would never forget the moments, I would never forget the times, and it was really fun, and it was something that I obviously needed. It was definitely something that I did not expect to be dangerous in a way that is energetically dangerous and psychologically damaging. I eventually, you know, dealt with a lot of energy vampires, left the scene, pretty much didn't really give anyone readings in the scene because it didn't feel right to do so, and I wasn't also in the right mind. That was a period of time, that was the heightened point to me being on drugs or taking drugs or being like addicted to substances. And so I wasn't gonna put anybody through a mode of me that wasn't at my highest self, let's just say it like that. So when I left all of that, I want to say I went to, where did I go? Oh, I moved to California. Yes, I moved to California. So now this part of the story comes in. Now, before I moved to California, like right before, I want to say like a few months before, the same year, early that year, I moved to California in 2016. At this point, I was, oh my gosh, how old was I? I think I was 26. Wait, yeah, if I was 22 in 2012, 2013, 23, 2014, 24, 2015, 25, 2016, 26. Oh my God, I can't believe I had to even count that. I might X that out. Okay, so I was 26 and I didn't have the corporate job anymore, but I had a security / fire guard job, and I was working that plus working at a magazine. I was the content manager for a magazine. So that was two different worlds once again, but I tend to do that often also. It's very interesting. So yeah, I was a security guard / fire guard for a performing arts college, and then I was also a content manager for a magazine. It was like 1 minute I'm like making sure students are safe at a resident hall, and the next minute I'm like assisting photo shoots for celebrities, and it was really fun. It was like nice to have a duality, and I think that's something that I constantly need, and now I'm starting to realize that as I'm talking. But it was great, and it was something that I also, like, even the staff at the residence hall, I will never forget some of them, like our conversations and like our moments, and it was just great. And some of the people that I met while, you know, working for the magazine, also great. So I pretty much started being around this person because I was looking for a place to live, and I thought, you know, I was gonna end up living, you know, like at this one place, but that didn't work out. So I like was renting different spots, and then eventually started living with this girl. So at the time, she has natural locks, let's just give that description. At the time, she was into herbs, and she was a nanny. That's what she was doing at the time. When she met me and she learned that I had a gift, I gave her a reading, and she was also like very much blown away and shocked, and she wanted me around her all the time after this. Recurring theme from the first person that started referring me to people. So this is the second who started referring me to people. Mind you, these two people reminded me of each other. One of them, the first one was like an older version of the second one. The second one was a younger version of the first one. So interesting. So I'm living at her house, and we're like sharing a room, sharing a space. We had this weird moment where it was like we grew feelings for each other. She had a boyfriend at the time. She wanted me to be a part of their like triangle. I did not want to be a part of it because at the time I was celibate for like almost a year, and I didn't want the first thing coming out of celibacy to be a triangle relationship. This is another recurring theme of people wanting me to be in their triangle. This is not the first time this has come up. This has happened before. So then things got weird because she didn't realize or know that I was suffering with mental health and I had alters. So certain episodes and lash outs, she was alarmed. Not that I ever tried to harm her or we ever tried to harm her at all, but she just didn't get the mental state of certain things that would be said or like certain reactions. And instead of her asking or trying to figure out exactly what was going on, she kind of just like distanced herself completely, which was a bit psychologically damaging because at the time with trauma response, that's not what you need. However, I do get that people do need to have self-perseverance and self-care for themselves. If they can't handle something, it is their responsibility, I guess, to walk away from it. Whether they walk away with respect or not is on them. But if they need to walk away, I totally get that. So now I get in hindsight why she had to do it. It may not have been the best way, but I get why. So basically, she starts referring me to like her friends. I start giving readings to like some of the roommates or like some of the people that she knew. She starts telling me how, you know, she was also going back to California because that's where she was from, right around the time that I wanted to move. And she was just like, you know what, you should just book your flight and book it right now. So she books me on the flight that she's on. And little did I know that we were gonna end up not speaking by the time the flight rolls around. Fast forward, the flight rolls around and we're on the plane, we get off the plane and she's like, you wanna come to my people's house? I was like, no, I'm okay, I'm okay. So I go like meet a friend of mine who we're no longer friends either. That's a story for a different day. But we meet up and people at the magazine that I was working for connected me to this like retired model slash actress. So I start being a nanny for her baby. And this baby was adorable. Like I still remember the baby to this day, loves this baby. So I felt like I was sent to that baby's life for a reason to guard her. But unfortunately, I said too much too soon to the mom about that. And I was also around another celebrity's house that I will not mention, but really, really big name. And I slept over once, I ran over lines for a film once there, and I remembered the lines the whole next day with no problem. It was like so awesome, it was kind of magical. But anyway, there was a lot of activity as far as energetically in the house, and I was expressing that way too soon as well. You know, you live and you learn what to say and what not to say. And so all that mixed with me smoking weed and that being a problem for her is kind of what had us part ways. That's back when I was heavily smoking. I pretty much was trying to like express my gifts, but the way it all happened and I recognized like my part in that was how I delivered it was too much. And so that kind of made me want to close up again with expressing my gifts and feeling like I can't ever go public once again, because this is before I was charging. Anyway, I leave from there and I go back to this person's presence who I was living with in New York right before moving, the young girl with the locks. So I am with her. She starts telling me how, you know, like, you should really maybe consider like doing this for more people, like I could refer to more people. So she's referring me to more people and that was cool, but like it was still like I still didn't want to like dive all the way in, so I still kept like things to myself. And so I'm trying to remember what happened from here. There was a lot of moving going on and like different, I have such a blank right now to what happened afterwards. I think it was like a lot of back and forth to New York around this point. I come back, I totally have a blank, it's probably for a reason. I go to New York, I come back to California. There was a lot of that, me trying to figure out like exactly where home was. Get back to California. Yeah, at this point, I am with an ex-girlfriend. It first was friends, then ex-girlfriend. I don't even want to give her any more power or attention going into details about her, no. So let's just say I'm with someone, we're both living in the garage of this next person who started referring me to people. Now, just to give a little description of who this person is, she was pretty much one of the backup singers and dancers for Prince, and she's a twin. And we were living there, and she was friends with a specific celebrity. You know, they were all in a tight group, and so we were living there in LA. We start getting close, and we start having like little powwows and one-on-ones, just us in like one of our cars. She, you know, was telling me, she was like, you should definitely start making this public. Like, she is the one literally who was like, you should make this public. This should be what you do. People should know you as this because this is who you are. And I was like, really? You think? Like, I don't think that I can really do that. I don't think that I should be going public with this. I don't know how I'm gonna be received. Little did I know that there was a growing market of people who were starting to come out as readers, who had never done it before. One of them being the second person who ever referred me to people. All of a sudden, since meeting me, I guess she got inspired to start going into that world and start branching more into that world. And all of a sudden now she's doing a whole bunch of things in that world. I left it alone. I still wanted to support her, and I was just like, you know what, it's gonna be what it is. So I decided to make a website, and I decided to start promoting myself on social media, and it was great. My first big set of referrals, I can say, that were like clients from all over the world, like Australia and etc., was from this third person who referred me, the person whose garage I was living in. So once I left from there, it kind of still, you know, just kept growing, word of mouth referral. And then I was able to refer even like old school people who knew me from the other people who referred me. And it was like I was able to relay them to my website, and it was scheduled, responsible way of doing the scheduling versus me just like being stressed to schedule, and it became so much better. So I was like, okay, I see how this works. Pardon anything you may hear in the background. There is a lot going on. I pretty much was starting to become very excited with one of the hardest things is like, you know that your own energy can help a situation, but you know that if you insert yourself, it's not going to be received because you've tried it before and it wasn't. And so you kind of just let whatever's going on go on when you know that you can possibly help, but you know they don't want it. That is one of the hardest things, bro. Yeah. So okay, I'm gonna try to remember where I left off. Probably gonna hear what you're hearing for a little minute, but I'm gonna just keep talking. So, I'm trying to remember where I was. Where was I? Okay, so I had a wonderful set of clients. I had clients from all over the world coming in. This is the first time that I actually decided to put a price, because this third person was like, okay, you know, you deserve to sustain yourself off of what you do. It is okay for you to do that. You are not a bad person if you do that. Because I've done this for a total of 18 years privately, but at the time it was minus the 3, it was like what? 15, 16 years private before I started charging. Last 3 years was public and I was charging. I started charging at half the rate, or even like a quarter of the rate that I got to at the end. And then I remember the first client who was like, you deserve double this, like you're amazing. And I was like, oh, thank you so much. And I communed with my ancestors, communed with God, made sure that it was the right thing to do before I started charging period or doubling prices. And eventually I did, and I felt, you know, it felt right. So got the okay from spirit and I started charging, and it was, you know, off and on in the beginning with having consistent clients, and only because it wasn't something that I still was thinking of even doing like on a regular basis. I still had other jobs that I was doing. I still had, you know, other interests that I was doing. And so it was still something that was pretty much on the side. Honestly, when I was homeless in my car in 2019, I believe that is when, yes, so I started the business in 2017 publicly, and obviously was doing it for like over a decade before that privately. But when the homelessness hit, I was like, well, you know, everything's pretty much like, it might just keep going downhill from here. I don't know what to do. I didn't have the original thought to start doing it on a regular basis. It was the second person who referred me, the one with the locks, who was like, you know what, you should really start going hard with your business. The time is now. Like, why not? Why wouldn't you? And she was like, I'll even help you. Like, I'll even promote you. We'll see if my clients are interested in you, and I don't mind referring you. This is when she was running her spiritual business now, and she was no longer friends with a certain other person in the spiritual community. I won't be giving that name either, but let's just say that a lot of people know who she is. And a lot of that person's clients became clients of the ex-friend of mine. And it was like that whole realm of people, I did not know what they were going to be like. I didn't have any expectations. You know, I was used to the clients that I had from the third person referrals, and you know, the clients from the old school people who knew about me. And I didn't know what this new set of people and market of people was going to be like. Well, that opened up a whole lot of different energies. And how could I say this in the most respectful way? I have chills and my hair is standing up. These energies that now came in, mind you, I did not want to do this publicly. And I was also noticing a whole bunch of people who, no offense to them, you can tell were very new at what they were doing. And some of them were trying to act like pros, and some of them were humble, which I appreciate, but some of them were sneaky and malicious, and I had no idea the whole time. So I started doing readings for this market of people. My name kept getting tagged and mentioned with ex-friend of the ex-friend, or the person that she was no longer friends with. And it was like we kept getting tagged together, and I didn't want that. I didn't want to be a part of something that I didn't necessarily totally agree with or didn't know them personally. And I didn't want anyone to think that we were similar, because we are totally different people. We did totally different things. We had totally different gifts. And this is not to negate anyone's gift or anyone's path or anyone's journey in the community, but I didn't know exactly how tainted it was, but I did know that when I started doing it, there was none of what I saw happening. It was like all of this stuff came in all of a sudden, and it was like too much, and it was expanding like a cancer, to be honest. How could I put this? So at this point, it's going well. I had did my first free reading special, and that was awesome. I remember doing 35 readings in one day on a Sunday. That was, whew, talk about being totally in the ether all day. I had to calm down off that. It was like such a natural, like, whew, like, whoa. And so it was awesome though, because it really showed me another side of who I was and what I can do. And it was amazing. That was kind of like when I fully trusted myself. It's so interesting how you can have something, you can do something for so long, but you don't necessarily fully like believe yourself, or you believe yourself, but you kind of have to just trust the process and who you are without really knowing who you are. And that was a time when I didn't really know who I was, but I was just trusting the process and trusting what I was meant to be doing. So then things start progressing. I start working at this other job. Things didn't work out there, and then I start traveling, progressing on with my life, trying to figure out where home is gonna be, and I start having all these different pit stops along the way. Around this time, probably like over half of a year after I was not in homelessness anymore, only because I just kept bouncing from place to place to figure out where I was gonna go. I was like, this is very vulnerable to talk about, by the way, but I feel like it's needed. I then get to that house where I mentioned in another video, where I was with this woman who tried to confuse me on a lot of things spiritually related, and she literally tried to make me believe a huge lie that is very cruel to do to someone. And it's very similar to something that my sister has done, among other things that she has done. So I luckily received the clarity and the revelation and the truth behind those lies. I'm very grateful for that. Around the time of me moving back to New York, deciding like, okay, let me just go back to where I'm from and see if I'm meant to be there. Around the time that I was living with my sister, I start going really hard with my business, and I start really like taking it extremely serious. Kind of like it starts to become sustaining for me in a way where this was the first time, and I want to say this was 2020. This was the first time when it started to really feel like, wow, I really have a business. I have chills. I really am sustaining myself with this, and I can possibly get, you know, I can possibly have a better life with this now. I can possibly become independent finally now. Maybe with this, like maybe this is what's gonna do it. I was trying to apply to jobs and going on interviews, very qualified. They would even tell me how qualified I was. Not trying to toot my own horn again, but I have a very great resume when it comes to like, I guess, regular work and regular jobs, and I have many different things under my experience. They still were not hiring me, so I was like, clearly this is what I'm meant to be doing. Spirit is leading me towards this. So I start accumulating clients coming in all the time. I was constantly booked. This time period of clients, a lot of them had large followings. A lot of them had seemingly a lot of people who trusted them. Their referrals for me did help, I can say, and I'm grateful for that, for people to know where to find me or what I was about fairly. I did not know that these people were some of the most darkest people that I could possibly encounter as far as energetically speaking. I have chills and my hair standing up again. This is the part of it where I was so blind to just how much they were taking from me, just how much they were spying on me energetically and astrally, just how much they were stalking my pages and coming up with all these judgments about me, and even people who knew them, who didn't really get readings from me, but who knew that they were getting readings from me, having all these opinions about me. One of them had a person that she knew who also had a large following, who would literally stalk my pages because I was very open about talking about my mental health, which was not easy, by the way, because when I came out about my mental health, I thought that everyone was gonna shun me and be like, this is crazy, stop going to her for readings. And I'm so grateful that people did not do that. But because this person saw that people didn't do that, decides to go constantly making these posts, subliminalizing me and completely like trying to defamate my character as if I'm some possessed creature, which is not the case at all. That one, what description can we say for that one? Loves to share Twitter posts a lot. Then this other one was a recurring client. Now this one actually did get readings from me. A recurring client of mine asking me all these amazing deep questions about herself and her love life and her future and the future of her children that she wanted and all these different things. And little did I know that this person was completely finding a way, and to this day it baffles the shit out of me on how she did it, would dig into like my own history and my own future and twist the reading so that way the reading she would get was actually me reading myself, but I'm thinking I'm reading her. What? How? The description for this person, I could say a blonde bob haircut. Then another person in the community would refer me to people and was a recurring client. At one point, I remember having a dream with this person, the dream revealing like malicious intent from her, but in a way where it was still kind of her trying to mask herself and like not really show her full intentions. But then the next day from having a dream from her, she's posting literally exactly what I wanted to post and what I wanted to say and what I wanted to talk about in the exact way that I wanted to talk about it. And it was like, whoa, so you were actually spying? It's like, what? Description for this person, I can say, has a son. These are just a few examples of how disgusting it became. Once I started realizing that even the people who didn't have a large following and was referred by them, even them, like one of them would keep telling me, oh, if you don't make your logo into a product on shirts, I'm gonna do it for you. And I'm just gonna basically like, she's just gonna start making shirts with my logo and pretty much profit off of me. Before that, the second person who ever referred me to people, the one with the locks, we were supposed to do a retreat together. She had me as a vendor for this retreat. She had a good chunk of ladies sign up with the specific notion of them knowing that I would be there. And I truly feel like she used my name to get these people to sign up. Mind you, it cost money to do so. For me not to get paid, even though it never happened, I still was supposed to be getting paid according to certain months and certain dates. And I got paid one time. out of this whole chunk of installments of payments, and the rest of the payments were not paid. And it was a total of about over $2,000 that was not paid to me. Mind you, had an attitude when I had someone assist me in finding out how to go about it. I sent an email still personally, even though I had the advice from the person. I still sent a personal email to find out, and this person was pretty much ghosting up until the end, and then still didn't really explain themselves. And I feel like they honestly moved to another country on my dime. So again, these are a few examples of how toxic the spiritual community was becoming for me, a community that I never wanted to join or even knew was a community, and didn't know how tainted it was and how it would become. And it was filled with a lot of people who would act like they knew what they were doing, but they didn't, no offense. It was also filled with a bunch of people who had a lot of ego, because once they learned to do what they would do, they were going above and beyond in the most intrusive, invasive ways to commune with a bunch of deities or beings that was way beyond what they were supposed to be communing with. And these beings and entities also had ego, and it was a whole bunch of ego on ego on ego. It was just way too dangerous. It was becoming way too invasive. I was feeling like I couldn't even breathe. So I stopped giving readings for that reason, because the people in the community, and I don't even want to call it a community, it's not a safe space. It is not a purified place as you would think. And it is a place where people are doing a lot of evil, but they're trying to come for the people who are very transparent, as if we are the ones who are evil or crazy or whatever, when they are secretly behind those screens doing a whole bunch of things you guys have no idea. So that is that on that. I feel finally free from that. And it took me 6 months to even be comfortable enough to talk about it and figure out how I should word everything. And I think I did it justice. And whew, until next time, just breathe.